Hello and welcome to Face to Face. Our guest today is Stan Dzbik. Stan is the treasurer of the Victoria Labour Council, and we're going to be talking about the role of organized labour in politics. Stan, maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit about what the Victoria Labour Council is.
Well, the Victoria Labour Council is an organization that's made up of 26 unions and over 50 locals in the Greater Victoria region, and our purpose is to do political action on behalf of our affiliate unions.
About how many people do you represent?
About 26,000 people in our area.
Okay, and that's out of a population of about 330,000 people in the CRD, 26,000 members?
26,000 unionized members.
Unionized members, and when you think about family and friends and everything else, it's a substantial chunk of the people of this city.
That's right.
So why does organized labor get involved in politics, or why should it get involved with politics?
Well, there are some people that say that unions and organized labor should basically only concern themselves with their members and their members' working conditions and that sort of thing, but the problem is it goes far beyond that. Everything that happens in society today is affected by politics, and it doesn't matter if it's back-to-work legislation by governments which aren't really friendly to unions or any other sort of thing like that. Politics influences everything.
Well, I'd certainly agree with that. Politics does influence everything, and I think, of course, that unions should play a major role in politics. The corporate sector certainly does, and on behalf of their investors and their own companies, and I think it's very important that unions do the same thing on behalf of their membership, because, as you said, it influences everything. So you made the comment, some people think that unions should only be involved with their members and their members' working conditions, but of course politics is predominant in that. So much of what happens, not only in the public sector but in the private sector as well, is controlled by government. And what should the unions be doing? Should you be supporting people who are going to be elected, or influencing politics and government by informing people about what's going on?
I believe that we should be doing both of these things, and in fact, just recently the Victoria Labour Council concluded its endorsement process for the municipal election campaign. What we did was we basically invited candidates that, if they were seeking an endorsement, to apply to the Victoria Labour Council, and they received a form, like an application, which they filled out. And this was returned before our last general meeting, and after we vetted their applications, we scheduled interviews, and we interviewed over 30 people, and these were people that are going to be running in the 13 municipalities, the 3 school districts, and the Island Trust. And we had interviews for 3 days, and then the selection was brought forward to the delegates at our general meeting. And the approval process was there, so any candidates that weren't approved by the members in the general meeting did not get our endorsement. So we have approximately 27 people that were endorsed, and they get a nominal amount of cash as part of the endorsement, but also what's probably more important for them is that their name will be put on a polling card, which will be mailed out to union members in the Victoria area. And what this polling card does is that it allows people going to vote to have an idea of the candidates that we feel would be friendly or friendlier towards issues that concern working people and the unions. And a lot of these candidates, they're not necessarily union people. We endorsed quite a few candidates that are people that are working in the community, or they're environmentalists. So there's a bit of an overlap of concerns with all these groups. And the Victoria Labour Council is trying to support the greater picture for in our municipal elections, so that we get people that are more concerned with the working conditions, and the lives for working people.
So the main benefit, I guess, to the people you endorse is that their name is going to be sent out to 26,000 households, and they will be listed as somebody who is endorsed by the Victoria Labour Council.
That's correct.
Yeah. What are some of the issues that are important? What are some of the questions that are asked?
Well, one of the things that concerns Victoria Labour Council and most unions is P3s. Now, the public-private partnerships, and there's been a real push over the last couple of decades to force public-private partnerships onto the scene. The idea behind it is that governments want to save money, so they partner up with a corporation that will help build something, like, for example, a hospital, or it could be an arena or something like that. And then they end up having a contract and allows them to run it. So they put up some money, and they have a contract to run this enterprise, and the government is supposedly saving some money doing this. But part of the problem with this is that quite often these companies that are part of the private part of the three Ps, sometimes they underbid or get in over their heads, and they go bankrupt, and that leaves everything in the hands of the government. And we've seen that happen time and time again in different places around the world. Just recently in London, the City of London in England contracted out to have their subway system rebuilt to a private company. And it turned out that this private company underbid, and then it was giving contracts to other companies that were sort of tied to them, and then eventually they just kind of went bankrupt, and the City of London had to pick up everything to finish it off. So that was a really major example of a 3P failing.
Now, when you said that one of the reasons for a P3 is supposedly to save money, but personally I think that's only what we're told. I think the real reason for a P3 is to transfer public money into the private sector. I don't think there is evidence that the public saves money on these deals.
No, and the other problem is that these private companies, they're around to make a profit. So really, if you look at the equation, where are they saving money? There's only one way they can save money, and that's by making sure that their workers aren't paid as well as they would be if they were working for the government, like they were municipal workers or provincial workers. So ultimately, these companies get the better end of the deal. They profit, and the workers that are doing the work, they're not being treated as well.
And so what it means is that people who could be making $15 to $20 to $25 an hour are all knocked down $2, $3, $4, $5, $6. Their wages come down. And all that money ends up going to the corporation. Now, who benefits from that? Is that a benefit to our community to have people working for less and still costing us as citizens the same in taxes, and the money just goes to a private corporation instead? To me, that's what P3s are all about.
It's a short-term benefit, maybe, but chances are in the long run it's going to end up costing more. And that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons why organized labor and the Victoria Labour Council, they're against these type of deals. The thing is about the P3s is that the provincial government has mandated that any project over a certain amount of value has to be looked at as a P3, or if it would be possible to do it as a P3. So that the provincial government, because of the type of government that they are, they've decided that P3s have priority, and the federal government under the Conservatives has also decided that P3s will be looked at for all large government projects. And this is where the organized labor feels that they have to get involved in politics, because the corporations that are involved in P3s, they lobbied the government, and they managed to convince the government to allow them to do this. And we feel that that's not the best for our community and for our working people.
And how hard is it really for a corporation to convince Stephen Harper of anything? I mean, who does he work for? And the same seems to be true of Christy Clark, and certainly was true of Gordon Campbell. So you support candidates who oppose P3s. Are there any other issues that you asked candidates about who wanted support from the Victoria Labour Council?
We did ask the candidates if they were interested in the living wage and promoting it if they got a chance to be on council. And we find that that's one of the things that not only is helpful for workers, but it's also helpful for the community in general, because then when people have more money to spend, they'll spend it in their community, and small business will benefit from that. And we think that all these things should go to help making a better community.
And living wage is basically the idea that when a municipality contracts out work, the people who are hired to do that work are getting what's called a living wage.
That's correct. In general, most municipalities pay their employees above what's termed a living wage in Victoria, which is around $18 an hour. But in addition to that, what we would like to see is that if the municipality hires a contractor, that the contractor pay its employees as well a living wage, so that there are no people doing work that's for the municipality and being paid like $12 or $10 an hour.
So in other words, let's say a new arena is built and it's municipally owned. The people in it should be getting paid a living wage, something like that.
That's right. Well, and most, I would say there's very, very few, if any, employees working for the municipal governments that are below a living wage. The majority are above it. And there's also a problem with the living wage proposal in the sense that you don't want to be interfering with collective bargaining and with the municipality. So if there are people that are making less, you can't go in there and have them automatically get a $2 an hour wage or something like that raise. But living wage it started out in Europe, and surprisingly, again, going back to London, it was one of those things where the politicians were against it until they saw the benefits of it, the benefits in the community, where people actually spend their money. If they can earn a little extra money than they had before, they can spend the money in the community. And now all politicians of all stripes are supporting the living wage campaign in London, for example.
In London, England.
Yeah.
I certainly think a living wage is fundamentally important. How about the issue of transit? Is that something that you would support candidates on? Well,
it all comes down to just building a better community. I think many of the people that we interviewed, they're for public transit, and they see the advantages of having a good public transit system as opposed to investing more money into highways. But in any of these questions that we ask our candidates that we endorsed, there's none of them are make or break questions. It's just to get an idea of where the candidate stands on certain issues, and obviously they'll vote with their heart, but we just want to make sure that if they do vote, that they keep in mind the issues that the Labour Council is interested in.
So the Victoria Labour Council is endorsing, I think you said about 27 candidates?
I believe that's the number.
Okay, and that's CRD-wide, both in city councils and for school board?
That's right. It's in the 13 municipalities and the 3 school districts.
Okay. And then, of course, it's up to all of us to go out and vote. And
that's right. Municipal election campaign doesn't really get that much interest, and it seems typically they're under 30% as far as voter turnout goes, which is rather unfortunate, because if you stop to think about it, whenever you vote for something municipally, that probably has the most direct impact on your life and your standard of living, because if you don't pay attention and say a pro-development group of people get into your particular municipality, you may have a large apartment building next to your house, and that's not something that is really what I think the average person would like to have.
Yeah. And also, when people vote municipally, it really does carry more weight because so few people do vote municipally that if you do go out, really it is important, and each vote does carry weight.
Not only municipally too, like organized labor and unions, we do want our members to participate in the provincial and federal election campaigns as well, because as we've seen in the past, if a government that's unfriendly to unions or to organized labor gets elected, they enact legislation which is very detrimental to people. And we had Bill 29 come in under Gordon Campbell, which was the one where he tore up the contracts of the hospital workers and cut wages by $5 an hour, massive layoffs. Ultimately, that went to court, and the unions won that, but the lives of people were so terribly affected. I knew people that were married couples that both of them worked in the hospitals, and you can imagine both of them losing 1/3 of their income, what an impact that had on their home situation. So if unionized people care about the jobs that they have and their standard of living, they have to be aware of who they're voting for, and quite often the unions are involved with their members, and the Victoria Labour Council is being involved mostly with politics, and that's where we try to do the most lobbying of not only of the politicians but also of our own affiliate members.
What are some of the other issues that the Labour Council works on over the period of a year? I mean, obviously you're putting some time and effort into these municipal elections, but what are some of the other issues you work on?
Some of our big events, we have the day of mourning for workers who are injured or killed on the job. So that's just to highlight that, again, this is to lobby the government to improve safety standards and to improve working conditions, so that workers can actually go to work and then come back home again without being injured or worse. One of the other things that we do promote women's equality issues. So there is a day where we had our women's committee out, and they were trying to let the public know about women that aren't being treated with as much equality in the workforce as men are. And this is especially true in non-unionized jobs, where the average wage of a woman in a job that's similar to that of a man is about 60 to 70% of the man's wage. In a unionized position, that's much closer. There's hardly any difference at all. But in non-union jobs, that's where the big difference is.
In terms of worker safety, do you think that's something that's we're progressing on, or going in the wrong direction on?
When the Campbell Liberal government was elected, one of the first things they did was go through the labor code, and they essentially removed about 1/3 of the regulations that were in the labor code, because they felt that they hindered productivity for businesses. So at the time, worker safety was basically, it took a big hit, and the accident statistics reflected that. Accident statistics kind of been going up and down over the last 10 years, and also it has to do with how much work is out there for people as well. So if the economy is doing poorly, not as many people is working, so you don't have as many accidents as you would in boom times.
There was a big spike in accidents and deaths in the forest industry at that time, I think.
Oh, I can just give another example of federally what happens when people elect a government that isn't really concerned with the issues of working people, and that's our current federal government, and how they've used legislation to interfere with collective bargaining. With the postal workers, they ordered them back to work even though they were locked out, and the postal workers could have gone back to work at any time if Canada Post had just opened the doors, but they ordered them back to work, and not only that, but they legislated them at a lower rate of pay than their actual last offer was from Canada Post. So that's an incredible amount of meddling into the collective bargaining process, and always using the excuse that the economy is not doing very well, except when they're promoting themselves and they're saying that the economy is doing really well. We're the best of all the G8 countries. But anytime one of these companies or the people in one of these companies wants to go on strike, then the economy is not doing well. They did the same thing. They threatened the people working for Canada, the flight attendants, and once again, it affects collective bargaining when you have an employer that really doesn't have to do anything because they know that the government has their back, and if the workers don't take whatever their offer is, then the government's going to legislate them back, and perhaps even legislate them back at a lower wage increase than was initially offered, like they did with the postal workers.
I was shocked when that happened. I was really surprised that the government of Canada would do something like that, and yet they did it, and it seemed to pass by and hardly a mention. I mean, maybe within the union movement something is happening, and there's a lot of anger or upset, but in the broader community, it's simply never mentioned. I mean, what was the reaction within the union movement to that, and then to the same thing exactly happening to the Air Canada employees?
Well, it's very disturbing, to say the least, because what it means is that this government is not really interested in collective bargaining. It's not interested in dealing with unions. If they can legislate unions back to work rather than actually allowing the collective bargaining process to work, means that they have no problem with interfering with the business of people. And it's ironic too, because the Conservative government is the type of government that they like to talk about the free market, and yet any chance they get to interfere in collective bargaining, which is part of the free market, they do. And especially, well, we've seen it already with these two major incidents with the Canada Post and with Air Canada. And just recently, Lisa Raitt, who's the Minister of Labour, she was speaking about whether or not we should change the Labour Code to make the economy an essential service. Now, that's just incredible to say something like that, because, if you read between the lines, what she's saying is that the economy is an essential service, then all strikes are banned.
It almost seems like that is where we're going. And yet, collective bargaining is protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, is it not?
It is, but when the government does this, what it does is force the union to take legal action against the government, and it costs money, it takes time, and it's also demoralizing for the union members as well, because they have to go through this whole legal process, and hopefully in the end they'll prevail, like the hospital workers did against the Liberal government. But still, you don't get back everything that was lost. So, even if you win, you don't really win.
No, certainly people's lives were hugely hit by that Bill 29. I mean, people were affected in the most negative ways. I'll just say one thing provincially. The provincial government is saying that there's no money available for any unionized workers or for many services as well because of the big deficit. And yet the deficit was really caused by the tax cuts brought in by the Campbell government. So there again, we see the power of the government to kind of manipulate the reality of a situation, tell people there's no money, but the only reason there's no money is because they gave tax cuts to the biggest businesses and richest people in the province, and everyone else is expected to pay for it.
Yeah, it's another case of create a crisis and then exploit it. Working people need to be aware that the unions are involved politically simply because everything is political, and all these decisions that are made by governments ultimately come back and affect working people, and not even just working people, the people who are unemployed or homeless and that sort of thing. all these decisions made by governments, it depends on the kind of government you elect. So with Labour Council, we hope that people do take their democratic right responsibility and vote, and vote with some thought and some care, and hopefully we'll get the government that we deserve.
And we deserve good government because we're good people. I'm a member of a union, and I personally would like to see unions take an even stronger stance politically and become more involved. But Stan, thank you very much, and thank you folks for watching Face to Face.